Hi everyone, how are you today? I hope you are doing well. Welcome to You Still Matter, a podcast about seniors and those who love them. I want to start out by saying that I've received several inquiries as to why I seem so passionate about doing You Still Matter. And I am very passionate about it because of some experiences that I have observed, in addition to some experiences that I've actually had myself, personal experiences. And some of the personal experiences that I actually experienced, if you will, I want to help prevent others from this happening to you. So, what I want to do, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about why advocating for seniors is really important. And I'm just really passionate about that. In fact, I've been advocating for others for years. I advocate for someone who I see that's being mistreated, someone who I see that is being disrespected. I just have to say something because I think that's what we're supposed to do. We're here on this earth to love each other, to, help take care of one another. And I'm going to give you an example of what I experienced when I was at one of my doctor's offices. It was several months ago. And anyway, I was sitting there in the waiting room, like the other patients who were waiting to be called. And so the receptionist called for one of the other patients that was there before I was. And so she was just screaming her name. And so, it was an elderly patient and she didn't hear. So she kept screaming her name. And so finally, she heard. And so she walked up to the desk. Well, in the conversation, this young lady kept screaming at this patient, and she was standing in front of her. So as she was having conversation with her, she kept screaming at her. And so it really disturbed my spirit to observe this. And I thought to myself, okay, Donna, if she does that one more time, I'm going to have to go over and say something. And this was the self-talk I was having right in my mind. So she did. And so I got up from where I was sitting and I walked over to the desk and I said, "Excuse me, why are you still screaming at her?" And so she said, "Because she didn't hear me." I said, "Okay, ma'am." I said, "Now she's standing in front of you and I'm pretty sure she can hear you now. So why do you continue to scream at her? That is so disrespectful." And so she said, "Well, I want to make sure that she hears me." And so I looked at the lady and she was just kind of standing there looking kind of sad. But I felt it was my duty to speak up for her because she was truly being disrespectful. So I went one step further and I said, "Well, I'm going to go ahead and speak to the office manager because that was just so not good." And so I asked to speak with the office manager. And so the office manager came out and we actually went back to her office. And I just explained to her that that was just so rude. It was such rude behavior by this young lady who kept screaming and disrespecting this patient. And I mentioned to her, I said, I mean, everybody saw it. And more than likely, the patient was also embarrassed because the lady kept screaming at her. And so I'm thinking I'm going to hear some kind of empathy coming from the office manager. But instead, what she said was, "Well, she actually is from New York and she hasn't been here but a few months. And, they're usually very, really abrupt and so on and so forth." And so I looked at her thinking, did she really just respond with that? And so I said to her, I said, "You know what? Someone that teaches etiquette, and that's what I do as well." I said it was just very rude and she was belittling her, and which was it's never, acceptable thing to do. And I said, "You know what, as far as customer service, or if you want to call it patient service or whatever the case is, I said, in business, I said it only takes one person, one, person that is working on your team to disrupt and destroy your business. And I said, I felt that's what she was doing because she was being so very disrespectful. And so the office manager looked at me and she said, oh, wow. Okay, was it really that bad? I said, yes, it was that bad. And I'm sure if you go out into the lobby and ask any of the patients that were sitting there that witnessed that, they would agree, yes, it was that bad. And so I told her, I just really just wanted to simply call this to your attention because it was just such disrespectful behavior. And so she looked at me, she said, well, she said, since you went through this length to talk to me, then I really feel I should speak with her. I said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for addressing the situation so that no one else has to be belittled or disrespected like that. And she said, well, again, thank you for bringing this to my attention. So saying all of that and sharing that story just means, please advocate for seniors. And even seniors can advocate for each other because I'm a senior myself. And like I said, that disrupted my spirit because that could have been me she was screaming at, although I would have said something back to her, very diplomatic, of course. But it's just so important. If you see something, say something. If you experience something or you observe that kind of experience, please say something. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to come on and share that story so you can be observant. And, we have to be observant of one another. Okay. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Take care. God bless. And I will see you soon. Remember, no matter how you're feeling or who you are or what your age is, always remember that you still matter. All right. Bye for now.